So the first thing we need to do in order to create our little digital studio is to make our spotlights. And I'm going to encourage you just to do a very formal set of spotlights first of all. But you can maybe rethink it and change the type of spotlight. So what I mean, okay, we make a new document. I'm going to make an A4 document and I'm going to make it portrait. Remember, we're going to use layer comps, so get your layer comps open, window layer comps, and you're going to need your layers open as well. You need a couple of layers of greys, one a dark grey and one a light grey. First of all, I'm going to fill this document, edit fill. I'm going to fill it with a light grey. So I'm going to go into colour, and sort of blue grey is quite nice, sort of gentle grey. And then I'm going to create another layer. So I've got two layers. So this is my light grey. And this is going to be mid grey. Again, I can come up to edit, fill, and I can choose 50% grey, or I could go back to colour and choose a darker grey. 50% is a bit dark, too dark, but I'm going to work with it. That'll be okay. So what I want to do is create a big spotlight, and I'm going to do that by masking out some of the mid grey. I need an ellipse tool. I'm just going to draw a big circle. Now I want to be able to edit this and see what it's going to look like. I control my pool of light, as it were. And to do this, I'm going to use my Refine Edge tool. So it's under Select, select Refine Edge. Make sure you're on your layer, and I've chosen to work with this overlay, and what it tells me is red, which is the default color for masking in Photoshop, for temporary masking. So what it's telling me is actually I'm going to mask out this bit here, which isn't really what I want. So I need to inverse this before I do that. Select, inverse. So I've now selected this section rather than this area here. And I'm going to go back into Refine Edge. So you can now see this is the bit that will be masked, and it will allow the soft light grey to come through. But it's too hard. I need to add a feather. So this is quite a good tool to use as well. If you wanted to use a feather and you forgot, you can come back in and apply a feather. You can also check out how near your edges to the edge of the page and decide whether you want to make it bigger or smaller. So I'm going to make my like approximately the size of the page. And then down the bottom we've got how we want to output it. So I'm going to output mine to a layer mask, which will sit on the dark grey layer. And click OK. So you can see that I've got the light grey coming through the mask into the dark grey. I'm going to merge these layers together. Layer, down the bottom, merge layers. You can also right click or use the flyout menu. If I went with the spot as it is at the moment, it would be just a little bit pathetic, really. It needs a bit more bite in it, and also it's very hard to tell where the horizon line is here. That's fine if that's what you want. So what I would like to do is to add a filter, which is going to allow me to add a bit of vignetting. Vignetting is something that photographers like to do. They like to, in the darkroom in days of old, put in a bit of punch at the edges, and particularly in the corners. And the particular filter that I want to use is called lens correction. At the moment, I'm locked out of lens correction. So what I need to do is check I'm on the layer, and I am. And what's probably happened is I've opened up this document in CMYK, and I'm locked out of certain things, including the lens correction filter. So remember to check when you are opening a document that you know which color space you're in. And if you need to change it, you do so under image mode and change it there. So I'm going to change it to RGB. Don't flatten. And in RGB, I'm able to apply the lens correction. So the lens correction generally gives you control over your layer, as if it was a photograph, and maybe you've taken an image with the wrong lens and you have something like barreling, which is blowing things out of control. So you can make some corrections. I'm interested in using this as an effect. So I'm actually going to move into the custom area and come down to the vignette. It's the vignette that I really want to add in. So we can either lighten the corners or we can darken the corners. I'm just going to pull this down, and you can see it's giving us a bit of punch in the corners. Later on, you might want to come back and you might want to look at some play with perspective. So you might want to rethink this lighting. We can do things to the lighting later on as well, which will have similar effects, but you might want to just experiment with the vertical or the horizontal perspective. And it just changes the pool of light so that it maybe looks a bit more realistic, a bit more positive. You can also change the angle, and you can change the scale of your whole image. I'm just going to put mine all back. And I'm just going to stick to the program and make a really obvious spotlight. So now I have my vignette. I'm going to duplicate that layer. And what we want to do is we want one layer to be about 2/3. And again, this is just going to really depend on where you need things to be positioned. Make this one about 1/3. It's just approximate. So you can see now I've got this really nice horizon line, and it feels more like a platform for something to sit on now. That has a spotlight on it. So I simply copied and pasted an image from Illustrator. So you will need to go and find that image that we were working on, your original 3D branding. You can use the one from Photoshop as well, but I'm going to go back to the Illustrator document and just talk you through how I've actually prepared it. So what I've done is I've gone to the 3D Revolved, which has had the artwork mapped to it, and I've added a couple of highlights as well using what's called an opacity mask. If you want to know how to do that, there is a video in the branding section which shows you how to finish off, but we'll certainly be coming back to opacity masks later on in the year. And what I need to do is just make a copy of all of this. So I'm just going to alt drag it. And then what I'm going to do in order to bring it in and to improve the quality of it, I'm going to say Object Rasterize. So of course this does turn it into a raster document, but that's fine because we're going to be working in a raster document now. I'm making sure that transparency is switched on. By default, it tends to switch itself off, so do be careful with that. And you can see instantly how that has improved it. So even when you're preparing something for your clients, for your design board, you might want to finish it off by rasterizing it, and that will improve the quality of it. So my can is a little bit stiff, but I'm going to work with it anyway. We'll just bring that in. I'm going to copy it. So file copy. I'm done with Illustrator now. I'm going to paste it. And I'm going to paste it as pixels into the document. So we need to position it in the document, decide where it's going to sit. And we're going to add reflections, and we're going to add shadows, and we're going to control shadows in a different kind of way. So I want you to view the next video for those instructions.